This is Phil Imbrogno, and you're listening to Unknown Origins Radio.
We live in a world filled with the unknown. Ghosts and spirits wander through our physical dimension. Undiscovered creatures lurk in the shadows, and strange lights and craft seem to dominate our skies. Modern science refuses to acknowledge their existence, yet credible eyewitnesses are convinced these things are real, and it's up to independent researchers to search for the truth. Welcome to Unknown Origins Radio.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of Unknown Origins Radio, where we talk about everything, and I mean everything, having to do with the strange and paranormal. And once again, we are joined tonight by our lovely co-host, Lauren DePinto. How you doing, Lauren?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, you look like you've got a lot of sun out there today.
Yep, I was down at Sandy Hook, class trip, having a great time. It was a great day.
And we also have on the phone with us tonight our other co-host. He gets in on, especially when we have these types of shows, Mike Ibbotson. How you doing tonight, Mike?
How are we doing, Mark? Good.
Doing good. Well, we're going to jump right into this because we have a really good guest tonight. Tonight's guest has found himself at the center of one of the most well-documented alien abduction cases in history. He's also the author of the best-selling book Messages, which chronicles his experiences with UFOs, the abduction phenomenon, and the infamous Men in Black. He's appeared on Larry King Live 2020, Coast to Coast, and he's been invited to speak at UFO conferences all over the country. He has two new books coming out, Answers and the Orion Regressions, which will be available soon in the next few weeks. So please welcome Stan Romanek to the program. How are you doing tonight, Stan?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good.
Well, that's great. I got to tell you, I read your book a couple years ago, right when it first came out, and that was one of the most amazing accounts that I've ever read. I mean, I've always been a UFO enthusiast. I read Whitley Strieber's book, Contact, when it first came out, and his follow-up books. But your book really seemed to put an interesting twist to the whole story. It's made it really personal. And a lot of people out there in our listening audience may not quite know exactly, of your story. So I was wondering if you can help share that with them tonight and what you've been through. Now, when did you, again, first start, when you had your first experience? When was that?
My first major experience happened in the winter of 2000. But like most abductees, there was some stuff that happened to me also as a child, but you really don't put two and two together and for some reason, I've been doing some research. It seems like most people that have had experiences as a child kind of get groomed for whatever this abduction experience is later on in life, and it seems that a few things happen when you're a kid, and then suddenly in your late 30s, early 40s, and it's pretty typical around that age when stuff starts to happen again. And with me, I was at the time my wife lived in Nebraska. I lived in Denver, Colorado, and we actually met online of all places and became really good friends. And I wanted to try to kind of entice her to come visit me up in Colorado because she'd never been there before. And I decided, it's beautiful, winter day, real warm, there's snow on the ground, just pristine, and I wanted to go videotape the surrounding area for her and send her a little care package. Well, I took my camcorder and I went up the back roads up to the foothills of the Rockies, and on the way up, I noticed some cars pulled off to the side of the road. There were about 30, 40 cars, and they were all looking above some power lines. And I looked up to see what they were looking at, and I saw something about, 50, 60 feet hovering above the power lines. First thing I thought was, oh my God, it's a hot air balloon and it's going to crash into the power line. So I started pulling over because I wanted to get video of this. And as I got closer, I realized it wasn't a hot air balloon at all. It was actually a metallic craft. Now, I was probably the most aggressive skeptic you could ever imagine. Honestly, I was rude to people if they came up to me and, told me they believed in UFOs or ghosts or anything like that. And I think this is payback. I think this is karma because I am definitely the poster child for the strange and unusual.
You think that they were sitting up there going, "Oh, he doesn't believe what? Guess what we have in store for him."
You know, looking back, you know, I believe that's probably possible.
Now, when you had your first abduction experience, you had other people around you at the time. Your sister was with you at that point, or sister-in-law?
My sister. That's what's so, you know, and all the skeptics and debunkers out there, they usually are skeptics and debunkers when they don't do any research and, you know, they just kind of fly off the handle and talk nonsense and they don't even know me or don't know my case. They just say things for no reason. What makes my case so different, and people need to understand this, most of the stuff that happens only seems to happen when there's a lot of people around. Now, my first abduction experience, my first that I can remember anyhow, happened in 2001, so a year later from my first UFO. And between, you know, 2000 and 2001, I had other UFO sightings, all kinds of strange things started to happen, and that kind of led up to this. I was actually, it was the 21st of September, and I would say the 20th of September. And I was managing a retail store, and I was closing the store up to go home, and I just let my last customers out. And they came running back in. They said, "There's something above your work." And the first thing I thought of was some crackpot or some kid who had climbed on top of the roof and was messing around. Well, I went outside to look, and up above my work, about 150 feet, 200 feet, was a red blinking sphere. And at first I thought, man, that is the weirdest balloon I ever saw. Only trouble was there were gale force winds that evening, and they were going from the west to the east, and this thing was stationary, blinking extremely fast, about 30, 40 foot in diameter, and it just hovered there. And this was during rush hour, and the store that I was working at was right on the corner of a very busy intersection. So all these people were watching this darn thing.
Was it dusk or daytime?
It was about 7 o'clock at night. Roughly about 7 o'clock at night. So it was during rush hour. People were going home. And so, you know, I watched this thing, and I was pretty freaked out thinking there were lots of people around. And it slowly just kind of floated away. You know, it floated up and up and up and up and kind of off to the east and then just disappeared. It's like, oh my goodness. I locked my store and got in my car and I hit the gas and I was kind of freaked out. And I was supposed to go out to dinner with my friend and my best friend and my sister. They were waiting for me at the apartment. And as I was driving home, I see this blinking object off in the distance, and it's son of a gun if it wasn't the same thing coming back. This time it didn't come toward my van, but it actually looked like it was hovering above my apartment complex. I quickly ran upstairs with my friend and my sister, got my camcorder, and we videotaped this object for a little bit before it disappeared again. Well, we were supposed to go out to dinner that evening, and we never made it to dinner, but my friend, we just did, I don't remember, TV dinnering or something like that. And my friend eventually went home about 11 o'clock, and I went to bed with an extremely bad headache. 2 o'clock in the evening, there was a knock at the door, and whoever it was, you know, they were knocking for a long time because it woke me up. And I got up to see who it was, and by the time I got there, my sister had already answered the door. And I thought, you know, maybe it was my friend, maybe he ran out of gas and had to walk back, you know, maybe the neighbors were drunk, couldn't get in their house, who knows. But when I got to the hallway, I looked down the hallway and I noticed 3 people standing outside. Now, this is not typical of what the abduction scenario usually is like.
Right.
And they always talk, and if you ever watch TV, and this drives me absolutely crazy, they always have the same supposed psychiatrist or doctors, and if you look up their credentials, they don't have any. They just, I don't know who these guys are, but they don't really know what the heck they're talking about. They always say it's sleep paralysis.
Oh, yeah.
You were asleep, and, you know, but that doesn't explain people like Biddy and Barney Hill, Travis Walton, or even my case, where it happened where I was fully awake and I remembered everything. But, so there were 3 people standing outside. There was a female and 2 males, which is not typical of, ETs that people talk about.
Well, let me ask, female or male what? Human looking or?
Well, they were human. I thought they were just teenage kids from far away. They looked like teenage kids, but as I got closer, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, they're going to rob us, because they were wearing masks. They were wearing costumes. It's like, why? It's not Halloween yet. It's September. It's not October. Why in the heck are they wearing these costumes? And I'm yelling at my sister not to let them in because she thought they were going to rob us. And then as I got closer, I could see their facial features move. I could see their eyes blink. I could see and they were not like your typical grays that people talk about. They didn't have the black eyes. They had extremely large, almond-shaped baby blue eyes. Not even baby blue. They were almost violet. They were extremely piercing. I can't explain.
Were they blue eyes in comparison to like human eyes with the whites and then the core?
They had a little bit of white. They had extremely large irises, and their irises were I can't even. I look around all the time to try to see if I can find that color, and I haven't really found anything.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a typical gray, right? It doesn't sound like a gray.
No. In fact, it wasn't. I don't think it wasn't a gray at all.
No.
And at first, like I said, I thought it was. Except for the female she had breasts, which is not typical of an ET either. So it's like, what in the world? And then the female. What's really stands out during this whole experience is my sister looked like she was still asleep. Her eyes were kind of glazed over. She was staring up at the ceiling with her mouth open, and the female just kind of pushed her aside like she was unconscious or something. And she kind of came forward, and I stepped back going, oh my God, I don't think these are costumes. What in the world's going on?
Oh, sure.
And she grabbed my wrist. The female grabbed my wrist, and there was a male on either side of her. And the most bizarre thing happened, and honestly, there's really no way to explain it. It's almost like trying to explain the colors to somebody that's blind that I've never seen, colors.
Right.
That's a good way to put it.
But a thought popped into my head, and let me tell you, that is the most sobering experience because, number one, it's not your thought. Number two, how to get there. But it's okay, you're going to be okay. And I wasn't going to be okay. I didn't put that thought in my head. I was pretty scared. For whatever reason, now I lived in a second-story apartment, and they were leading me out to the balcony. And apparently I got so scared I snapped out of whatever trance I was in. Because I was going with her as they were leading me out to the balcony.
Oh, my goodness.
And I grabbed one of the males, and I picked him up, and I was going to throw him off the balcony, and I felt like somebody just lightly tapped me on the back of the head, and I woke up.
Now, you said you picked up the male. In the book, you described him as very lightweight but very muscular.
Exactly, and they don't move like you or I do. They're very regal. They're very fluid. They're not jerky. They're just built differently. I mean, they're extremely strong, but man, it was like picking up a little kid. But this thing, whatever it was really strong.
Now, other than the telepathic communication that you were going to be okay, did these beings make any kind of sound?
Honestly, I don't remember. All I remember is the way they moved, the way their mouth didn't look like it really was meant to have vocal cords. In the book I call them the possum people because they have this really big head and almost, like somebody that's 200 years old has this real white, scraggly hair.
So these are the people, what a lot of investigators might call the Nordics. You think would be a good description of them?
Yeah, the Nordics are supposed to be beautiful. They're supposed to be, very, very, they're like,
Right.
Norwegian, Norway.
Vikings
right?
on steroids.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, like, Thor.
But these were something else. These were very advanced.
On Larry King Live 2020, coast to coast, and he's been invited to speak at UFO conferences all over the country. He has 2 new books coming out, Answers and the Orion Regressions, which will be available soon in the next few weeks. So please welcome Stan Romanek to the program. How are you doing tonight, Stan?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good.
Well, that's great. I got to tell you, I read your book a couple years ago, right when it...
This is Phil Imbrogno, and you're listening to Unknown Origins Radio.
We live in a world filled with the unknown. Ghosts and spirits wander through our physical dimension. Undiscovered creatures lurk in the shadows, and strange lights and crafts.
And I mean everything having to do with the strange and paranormal. And once again, we are joined tonight by our lovely co-host, Lauren DePinto. How you doing, Lauren?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, you look like you've got a lot of sun out there today.
Yep, I was down at Sandy Hook, class trip, having a great time. It was a great day.
And we also have on the phone with us tonight our other co-host. He gets in on, especially when we have these types of shows, Mike Ibbotson. How you doing tonight, Mike?
How are we doing, Mark? Doing good.
Doing good. Well, we're going to jump right into this because we have a really good guest tonight. Tonight's guest has found himself at the center of one of the most well-documented alien abduction cases in history. He's also the author of the best-selling book Messages, which chronicles his experiences with UFOs, the abduction phenomenon, and the infamous Men in Black. He's appeared...
seem to dominate our skies. Modern science refuses to acknowledge their existence, yet credible eyewitnesses are convinced these things are real, and it's up to independent researchers to search for the truth. Welcome to Unknown Origins Radio.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of Unknown Origins Radio, where we talk about everything